Welcome to the Great Reboot. I'm Tori Ryden. Money, or lack thereof. Seems since COVID-19 came onto the scene, nobody knows exactly what to do about paying their bills, paying their rent. Will they have enough money to buy food for themselves and their families? These uncertain times have put many people all over the globe into panic mode. And we thought it would be a good idea to bring somebody onto the show who can help us make some sense of it all. Certified public accountant, CPA, Allison Bishop. She launched her financial coaching business in 2015 after seeing a real need for independent, unbiased financial advice. And so many people need that right now. Allison, I want to welcome you to the Great Reboot.
Thank you for having me.
Allison, the numbers are just really mind-boggling. An estimated 20 million people or more in America are out of work. Many have lost their jobs permanently. Some are furloughed. And I just read a number this morning, and it was coming from the United Nations labor body, which estimates globally 195 million jobs could be wiped out. 195. So people are scrambling, and again, there's a lot of anxiety. People are trying to figure out, what do I do? And thank goodness I received I received a really great note on Facebook, and it came from another guest who's going to be coming right on. I want to welcome Joel Binder onto the show. Joel, let me give a little bit of your background. Joel lives in Maryland. I invited him on after seeing a post to Facebook. He was lamenting the lack of news stories to help figure out the financial headache of paying monthly bills in this new normal, suggesting that, maybe that's a good way to try to break things down for people. So I want to introduce the two of you first. Welcome, Joel, to the Great Reboot, and this is Allison.
Hi.
Hi, Joel.
Maybe in your own words, Joel lives in Maryland, and just to give a little background for Joel, he worked for 20 years as the public relations executive in Los Angeles. He oversaw Disney's international home entertainment business. He now manages an indoor soccer facility, a once busy facility. I'm anticipating, though, Joel, that the Knights have been rather quiet there, and the nightly leagues there are not actually playing.
Yeah, we've been shut down since about March 15th.
So it's quiet for you. Are you still working, though?
We were first put on unemployment, but then they brought us back on, and we're doing a lot of administrative things, just trying to get everything back in place, things that we haven't dealt with in a long time. We're trying to keep in touch with our clients and just let everybody know that, we'll be coming back as soon as possible. All I can tell you, we're very hungry to start playing soccer again.
Yeah, I bet. And just to get kind of back to whatever normal is, and it's going to probably look a little bit different, but, it's interesting, how many people are freaking out right now. And I know that you speak for a lot of people, Joel, when you say, look, it's almost like, flying blindly, that you don't know which bill to pay, whether to pay rent, whether to pay mortgage, where to go from there. So I would love it if maybe you could, in your own words, ask Allison, this is a great opportunity for some back and forth. And, maybe your first question to Allison might have something to do with that, kind of where to go.
Well, I would start by saying, I'd like her to know what, something that I did, which was start reflecting on what all my bills were and start realizing where I could cut back things. I think I mentioned in my post to you was it the first thing I did was I called my car insurance company. I lowered my rate by 50%. And that was even with better coverage. Of course, my food bills have gone up because I'm now eating 3 meals a day, which I don't normally do because I normally don't go to work until 5 p.m. and I get home at like 1 in the morning. Then, of course, I looked at and cut back the cable bill. So I guess my question to Allison would be, tell us what other ways that people can look into cutting back their daily bills without having to forgo not paying rent or really other important things like health insurance.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I just want to say you're taking all the right steps. Thinking about where, even if they seem like little areas, cutting your car insurance is a great thing to consider right away. but looking at your monthly income and expenses. So for, how much money do you have coming in every month? And of course, for every person and for every family, it's different. Sometimes they had, some people may be totally out of work. Some people may be out of work and collecting unemployment. So what does the income situation look like? If, let's say it's a couple and one person is still working and the other person isn't, or has reduced hours. So what does that look like? What is your best guess as far as what your income is? And then just taking a look at every single bill you expect to pay. I would, if it were me, either write it down on a pad of paper or in Excel, something like that. And, if you're not sure, you can go back over the last, 2 or 3 months bank statements and say, where did my money actually go? And then just make a list of those things. And I think you've already done some of the work, which is critically looking at each one of those items and saying, is there something I can do about this particular bill? How much of a need is this?
Correct.
And then looking at, this is what I expect my income to be. This is what I expect my expenses to be. Is there a gap in between those? And the other thing, like you were talking about, is, deciding which bills to pay. And I think being very proactive is important. So if, you're in a situation of reduced income, I would say go to everyone that you can. I know a lot of the, the utility companies and landlords and mortgage, banks are all dealing with this right now. And they may have a program, designed to help people who are affected by this pandemic. And you're not going to know until you find out, until you go ask. So I think that's what I would suggest is gathering all your information as far as what's coming in, what needs to be paid, and then also what needs to be paid in cash, because there are some bills that, you might have your cell phone bill already on your credit card. And that is a little bit more flexibility as far as, do I pay the whole credit card bill? Do I not? Do I carry a balance till next month? And then, my office rent, for example, my landlord just went to accepting credit cards, which we'd never, in the 4 years I've been there, they've never done that. So just looking at all the different options and how flexible things are. And then of course, addressing it with the, whoever it is that you owe money to, and finding out what your options are. If you, student loan payments, all of those kinds of things, once you gather that information about what your options are, then you can make really informed decisions.
Joel,
Yep.
I've got a quick question for you. Do you rent or do you own?
I currently rent.
Okay, so maybe Allison, can you talk to Joel about that? I mean, does he have a little bit of wiggle room in contacting his landlord? I would imagine they'd be thrilled to get just even a half or a quarter.
Actually, if I can interrupt for a moment, the landlord did actually send out a note of resources in Baltimore where people could go if they do need support in paying their rent. So there are other resources that you can go to, if you do need help paying the rent. I'm very lucky. I don't have any debt. I can pay my bills right now. But there are other outlets that you can go to if you need support.
I think that's fantastic. I mean, I think that the problem though is, you might be in a good situation right now, but who knows how long this is going to go on for. And I think that that's kind of it's that great unknown.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say it's the uncertainty, I think, that is getting people right now, because you might be able to say, okay, and I'm not talking about you particularly, Joel, but somebody might say, I have enough money, I can get through the next 8 weeks, but I don't know what's going to happen. And so with this, the great uncertainty, I think, is what's really causing the problem, because you could make better decisions if you knew, for somebody who's out of work, or, a hairstylist whose salon is going to open back, you could make better decisions if you knew the timing of it. And that's, I think, the most difficult thing about this is not having the whole picture.
I think my point was trying to use this period to make better, like you said, make better decisions, so that in the future, when we're done with all of this, hopefully it will make us make those better decisions in the future in case something like this ever were to come up again.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I do think this is an opportunity for us to step back and say, okay, this has kind of clarified my needs and my wants.
Correct.
And I think some people will be, especially people whose income isn't affected, all of a sudden they're spending a lot less money. on, you know, all the fun discretionary stuff, like the going out to eat and, you know, so I do think this is an opportunity to step back and reflect. I'm a person who tracks all my expenses, and so I can tell you, you know, how much my grocery bill has gone up, you know, other fun stuff has gone down. But I think it will be surprising to people. Some people aren't going to pay any attention to it. But for those of us who, you know, want to be good stewards of our money and want to use it wisely and make progress, this is a great opportunity for us to say what is important. And, you know, are there changes that I've been forced to make that I really like? And I don't want to go back necessarily to where I was before, because I didn't realize how much money I was wasting.
Correct.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are starting to do that, is to look at, oh, gee, I guess maybe I'm saving $100 here and there. And it does add up. But then again, on the grocery end, it also adds up. So I'm wondering, you know, Allison, you've been a CPA for 21 years, I think I read. And after you started the business that you're running now in 2015, I love that you were able to look at this and say, look, there are so many people who are financially illiterate. And I think I look back to my own schooling, Joel, maybe you too. I don't feel like I ever learned how to balance a page how the checkbook in school, or
Right.
how to manage money. I mean, you know, we learned how to cook and we learned how to pound nails into wood, but I don't think I ever took a class. You know, I wasn't kind of going down the accounting route. So I'm wondering if that's something that, you know, you're stepping in and trying to help people with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I say I was an accounting major. I never took a personal finance class. Like they didn't teach us this stuff. I think now people are realizing it, and you know, they're trying to fill the gap. But yeah, I mean, some people are I think a lot of it stems from what you saw growing up and your parents. That's what I find a lot, is like people who are sensible with money and, you know, want to eliminate debt. Like it sounds like, you know, Joel wants to be a good steward and wants to, you know, make progress toward financial goals. Those people, mostly they learned it from their parents. But a lot of, even that was not explicit. You know, I didn't really get explicit lessons on how to manage my money. I just saw my parents being careful about their money and thinking, you know, hard about it. But when I was just out of college, I had an accounting degree. I was not a personal finance expert by any means. You know, I kind of stumbled through it and had some technical skills. But yeah, this is absolutely an area in which we could be doing better, and we should be doing better. And I feel like I see it a lot in the media now. People are recognizing, and it may be that this one consequence of this major economic situation we're in is that it might kind of be hitting the nail on the head of we need to address this, and we need to address things like, you know, in good times saving for this kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the CDC is already predicting that we may very likely go through this again, if not in the fall, then maybe next year. So I think that it's actually very wise to be looking ahead and saying, okay, maybe this is how I'll do it a little bit differently. Or what do you have, you know, if you could give us maybe even 3 things that we can be looking ahead to say, okay, these are the 3 things I need to really look at right now. And, you know, even if one is kind of like and I don't want to say a peanut butter jar or something to put extra change in, but just 3 things that people can do today to help themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that I always talk to with all my clients is have some savings. Even if you've got high interest debt, because there are plenty of people who have, you know, tens of thousands of dollars of credit card, but having some savings, and I mean, in the realm of like $1,000 to $2,000 or $3,000 to absorb those big monthly expenses that happen, you know, car repairs, buying a new appliance, like things that we might not be able to absorb in our monthly cash flow. That's the first thing. I think that's even more important than high interest credit card debt, because you have to have that. If you don't have that, then it's hard to get out of credit card debt, or hard to stop going into it. If you have the situation, if you need new tires on your car and you have to pay for it somehow if you don't have cash. And now, of course, we're realizing so many more of us are affected by this, something like a health crisis that we honestly didn't see coming. So I would say some amount of savings, getting rid of high interest debt. So, and that might be, if you've got credit cards, just looking at all your options. So it might be getting a 0% interest credit card and making progress toward paying down the principal. Or it might be, if you own a home, getting a home equity line of credit, some kind of replacing your high interest debt with low interest debt.
Well, or Allison, calling the credit card companies and seeing if you could get your interest rate down. Something as easy as that.
Yeah, that is definitely an option. Just looking at all the possibilities. One thing that I would say that what I'm seeing right now after the CARES Act, which part of it is making it easier for us to do things like take money out of our retirement accounts, is sometimes that's kind of becoming people's first kind of knee-jerk reaction. Like, oh, I have, $30,000 sitting in a retirement account and I'm going to take that money out because the government's letting me do it now without a penalty. And that should never be your first, it might be the right answer for you, especially to get through this time if you really don't have income and you do have money stashed away in a retirement account. But I just think you have to look at all of your possibilities before automatically jumping to something, which I think taking money out of your retirement account is kind of a drastic.
Well, I also, back to my original point, it's, you don't want to do that. You want to reevaluate every one of your monthly expenses before you even approach doing something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you might be in a situation of, your spouse isn't working, but you are working. And one thing you can do is maybe pull back on your new retirement contributions. There's things, just looking at everything, all your sources of income. Even, they always talk about things like selling things on eBay if you're in a pinch and you really need some cash. So just trying to be creative.
I've also been hearing a lot of people talking about bartering. And so that would be kind of you give your expertise for their expertise, and there's not really a cash exchange, which is also a nice way. Joel, I'm wondering what's happening where you live in the Baltimore area. And do you feel like there are a lot of people who are in that kind of a worse situation than you are, just trying to kind of figure out, can I stay in my apartment? Has it reached kind of a fever pitch? And then I'm going to couple that with, do you have any, questions, in light of all of that for Allison?
Well, it's interesting because I've been trying to stay in touch with a lot of the captains of the different teams that I run, and nobody really seems to be in a panic mode. I was on the phone last night with somebody who is a painter, paints houses for a living. And he said, the work's not coming in as much, but he's not really in panic mode yet. So everybody seems, nobody's fighting to get back. They're waiting. We've got an amazing governor who is telling us, what we need to do and how, and we're all seeing to follow it. I mean, it's a ghost town here in Baltimore City. So it's nice, but I don't see anybody really, really panicking here in Maryland yet.
Should people be panicking, Allison? Should there be more of a panic mode, do you think?
I would say no. I mean, I don't think panic ever really serves people. I think being prepared, and even if you're in the situation of right now, you have income, your job's okay, it might be, your pay gets cut in a few months when your company just is struggling to recover or something. So I think gathering the information you can, seeing, just looking at all your assets, looking at all your debts, understanding your full financial situation, that's a positive step that you can take. But no, I mean, I don't think panic ever serves anybody. I think planning does, thinking about what if something happens, absolutely, and planning for that and saying, if our hours get cut, what will we do at that point? What's our plan B? What's our plan C?
Well, Allison,
Allison,
the other thing I think you need to think about too, or let your clients know is that, okay, my hours were cut back 25% over the last 2 weeks, but because of taxation, I didn't make as much, so that I didn't have as many taxes came out. So my net was really only about a $200 loss over the 2-week period. So I think your advice to tell people not to panic is very smart.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. If your paycheck, because withholdings on your paycheck are done based on the amount of that paycheck.
Right.
And so if you have a smaller paycheck the way the withholding system is, it assumes that that is your paycheck for the rest of the year. And so if it's unusually small for some reason, they're going to withhold a lot less taxes. So yeah, that's a good point. And you know what, one thing you can do, especially for people who are self-employed, although actually anybody can do this, is the IRS has a really good withholding calculator where you can go in, especially if your income is going to be different than what you were anticipating it was going to be. You know, maybe you're in sales and your commissions aren't going to be what you thought. So you can Google IRS withholding calculator and put in, so far, you know, look at your last paycheck, and put in, so far I've made this much money. You know, I get paid biweekly. And then you look at the year-to-date numbers of what was withheld so far, and it will give you a sense of, do you need to change your withholding, and you can do it multiple times throughout the year. And then by the end of the year, you have a better sense of, am I going to get a refund? Am I going to owe? But yeah, taxes are.
No, I think that's a great idea, because it's better to take the money up front and don't know anything at the end of the year, or don't get any refund at the end of the year.
Yeah,
but
if you're going to need it,
need to be careful not to take too much.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think keeping an eye, if you're going to play around with your withholdings, just keeping an eye on it. But yeah, if your income's reduced, then you might not need as much taxes withheld.
Right.
So that's a way that you can you have more cash flow at this time when you need it right now.
So it sounds like, I mean, there's some really great strategies, but a lot of it is kind of standing up for yourself and actually having the courage to make those phone calls and to say, look, I am in this situation, because everybody's in this situation. Yeah. And so if you are forward thinking and you put yourself out there and just say, could you help, please, and be kind about it, then it sounds like they'd be willing to work with you. Allison, I'm wondering, is there a web address that people can reach you, or an email where people can reach you with additional questions?
My website is just my name. It's AllisonBishop.com, ALLISON Bishop.com. And I have blogs on there. So there might be something for people who are interested in this kind of personal finance stuff. But that's where you can find me.
And perhaps you'll also have information. Maybe you ought to have a class, a financial wisdom class for folks online. I'm sure you'd have a lot of people signing up for it.
Yeah, I have thought about it over the last year or so. I've actually thought about it more in terms of younger, people in their 20s, kind of like you were saying, coming out of college. And but yes, I agree. Now would be a good time, especially we're in our homes. Some people are bored, so yes, thanks for the idea.
Activate the brain, right, and the wallet too. Joel, do you have any final questions for Allison? Because I'm so glad that you were able to join us and share some of your story, because it echoes with so many other people.
I really don't. I mean, it's nice meeting you, Allison. I think that what Tori just mentioned was a great idea, by doing some online classes for people that need that extra help. But no, I think I'm in good shape. I'm doing okay. And I'm trying to be there for other people as well.
Well, Joel Binder, I want to thank you for joining us and sharing your story. And Allison, I want to thank you. Allison, again, is a CPA. She has been one for 21 years, and she can be reached, as she said, through her website, which is AllisonBishop.com. I want to thank you both so much. Thanks for joining the Great Reboot, and everything that you shared is going to be so helpful to a lot of people who are just trying to figure out where to go from here, which bills to pay, what to do, not to panic, and all of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
To both of you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Tori.